Um, I want to mention Brattle is showing Hong Sang-soo's latest film next week. I actually forget what's at the Harvard Archive. I'm temporarily not a member, so I'm less involved. I'm having a show at Emerson Monday, April 16th, Marathon Patriots Day at 7 o'clock. So if you're running in the marathon, it's a great place to chill. I myself don't run the marathon because I'm against competition and I don't want to show those people up. So I'm sitting out the marathon this time. Next week we're going to see Marjorie Keller's Herein and some other stuff. Tonight, I've told the story a number of times, so I'll tell it again. I met Bruce a long time ago in the early 80s, or maybe even the late 70s. I walked into, there used to be a place called Boston Film and Video Foundation, which was a kind of organization of all the various kind of independent films in Boston, documentary, avant-garde, narrative, but that was outside of mainly outside of the industry, although Leanne Brandon was a member. It was an attempt to have all of the various strands of independent film in one organization, getting grants together for equipment, for distribution, running classes. And also, I mean, some of us felt this was a little bit, that it should also be an advocacy organization. That is, it should like help negotiate problems with labs, with facilities, and be an, a organization that spoke up for independent film making in Boston. So anyway, when I see this guy, he looks very sad. I'm not usually this nice a person, but I went over and I said to this guy, I said, "What's up?" And he said, "Well, my films just got rejected from being shown here." So I said, "Oh, I know the feeling. My films are often rejected, but I'm teaching at Mass College of Art, and if you come to my class, I'll pay you like 25 or 50, some nominal amount, but which was then what would be about $100 today." And so Bruce came to my class, and that's how I met him. I saw his films for the first time. And that was a wonderful encounter, because Bruce Posner is one of the great cinephiles alive. This guy knows more about film history than, has forgotten more about film history than I ever knew. He's a great scholar, especially of early cinema, in an amateur way. I mean, you don't see PhD after his name, This guy, he's a real, you know what cinephile means? It means lover of cinema. Almost pathologically a lover of cinema. So, what can I say? I'm like that too, so I felt a big kinship with this guy. He also is, besides being a scholar, he's put out many DVDs, written stuff, and he's been a great curator. He was a curator at the HFA, and I have to say, the curator, when Bruce curated, he was the first one to make a point of showing local filmmakers beyond the Harvard group. He was the first one to have a local women's show. Am I right? Isn't that true? He was the first at the Harvard Archive, a tradition he started and lapsed when he left. So
I think the best part was for 4 years I ran with George Mansour, the Gay and Lesbian Film Video Boston Festival. And I'm not gay, and it was at Harvard. It was
right.
all wrong.
So what I'm saying is this guy was a pioneer in Boston of screening films that had really not been put in a spotlight before. So and he actually gave me a show. Bruce went out with a bang. The Boston show, the last Boston show he did was the last straw that got him. I don't really know this, but the director of the Harvard Archive said, and this was my work, Luther's, virtually the entire avant-garde community in Boston, they said our work was garbage. And I myself consider the response of the director homophobic in the extreme, and I wrote and said so publicly, and I wrote in Bruce's defense. And I went out there, went public, and he got fired. Anyway, didn't help.
There's sort of a symmetry to all this.
Yes. So I'm also going to say, Bruce is a great filmmaker. His work has a kind of, he's an extremist, as you might guess. So there may be things about the volume that you might find troublesome. There may be things in the imagery that you find troublesome. If any of this bothers you, leave, and you might want to come back. He isn't consistent. The various works will be extreme and irritating in very different ways. Possibly, but actually, it'll be a wonderful, unique experience if you stay. And so here I'm going to, after this too long introduction, here's Bruce Posner, fresh from New Hampshire.
Thank you. I don't know what to say about that. Okay, good. The reason I'm doing this is I do all the stuff he was saying for other people, and I've been doing it for a long time now. And I also make stuff simultaneously, but I never really show it. So I realized maybe about 10 years ago that it was really stupid to be taking care of everybody else's work but not my own, instead of publicly sharing it. But then I have this weird penchant of being hidden up in the woods in New Hampshire, which is weird because of all these projects that the DVDs and the touring programs and this have to do with. And so the world has shrunk down to a little basement room in the Howe Library in Hanover, New Hampshire, and sometimes over at Dartmouth doing things with them. that's my life pretty much, is in this little tiny room that this dialogue goes on. So the dialogue is a thing called Cine Salon, and we talk and show films, and there's a core group of maybe 15 people, then there's maybe about 100 or so people that come and go, and it's completely informal, and it's like somebody's living room or something, right? But it's outside in public. Anyway, the point being, again, I'll show something like maybe one of these I'll show there, or this or that. I'm talking about my own work now. And I just realized, God, I'm 65 now, or going to be, and it's like, wait, and film's dead. That's the other thing. You all know that, right? I mean, for all practical purposes, it's dead. So then I realized, okay, I got to take care of my own business, and part of that business is now reaching out again. So I started in town, went to the library, went across the street to Dartmouth, went around the fence. So I'm making these larger circles of trying to show my own work. And then the problem is this: is what the hell does this have to do with any of you? Because it's such a personal, turned-in enterprise that I'm telling you about. I don't know. So his introduction was great. You could stay, you leave, whatever. This batch of things I'm showing you have been vetted by about 15 various people in private showings, and everybody seems to like it. So I think you guys will too. The loudness is my problem. I can't hear well, so we were trying to tune it down and this and that. But I think you're gonna get it. That's for sure. Maybe we can turn it down a little if it's really problematic. And the other thing is this: is while sorting through all these, I have right now, I don't know how many films literally I have of my own, but there's about 60 hours of finished films, give or take, which is still not a lot, but not a little either, and especially since nobody knows about it, or who cares anyway. So this pruning process involves, tonight, I threw in a couple pieces that haven't been shown before in public, so it'll be interesting if any of you make it and we talk later. And I'm not sure if this is any of the notes or anything, but it's called Aestheticized Portraiture. But the Boston Globe did better. Posner on Parade. I thought that was perfect. That nailed the whole thing. And my friend Trevor Fairbrother, who's used to be a curator at the MFA here, who's a neighbor up in Hanover, he always calls me Mr. Billboard. So it's a great, you're getting the idea, sort of? But it's not intentional. It's just like Saul said, it's what I do, unfortunately. Aestheticized portraiture is how I see these things. So there's sort of a home movie on one end, and there's sort of art on the other, but they're really not, because if are you all students here for the most part, or? Yes, no, mixture of people. You're obviously here for a reason. I'm so far out of the loop of whatever's going on the street that I don't know how this will come off to you, because it's being done sort of in a vacuum, or it was in a vacuum. Is that good?
Good, great. I unfortunately, I have one little bureaucratic thing.
Oh, yeah.
Class. Next Tuesday isn't Tuesday, according to Bassart. According to Bassart, I'm learning a lot of things are what they seem to be. But next Tuesday is not Tuesday, it's Monday. So we are not having our class next Tuesday, the 17th, because on this campus it's Monday. We will have, that thing I said, I really do want to see your works on the two classes. We're going to have class till the end, till the end anyway. But I think it would be great if we all looked at your work together. So that's the story. And there'll be Film Society normally next week. Sorry to
No, that's okay. It gave me a second to remember. The one thing we should finish up, because you brought it up, it's really interesting. I've always found it interesting, especially to this moment in time, with what's going on with you and everything. And the past is the film that caused the schism with Harvard, if that's the way to put it, was a film by Luther Price. It was a great film. I hope some of you see, called Me Got No Dog Dog.
Oh, it's really.
But it is as offensive a film as, I mean, if putting it in your face is one could do. And it was so grand to see it on that big screen there in that context, because it was clearly, even if everybody was totally not homophobic, it was still pushing all the buttons. You know, I mean, as an artwork, and just how that machine, if you've seen this film. I'm sorry I'm talking about this stuff, but this was the film that did it. Something, was it 1995? And now, with the way the culture's gone, to come around to this point now that we're facing this bullshit that he's getting, especially after the incredible tenure he's had here and all the stuff, this is absolutely nuts. It has nothing to do with the sex part of the contact, or the homophobia, or this or that. It has to do with the assault, which is what a good artwork should do. Somehow, whether that assault is a positive assault or maybe a negative one like tonight, I don't know. But it has to push and bend and give something human back and forth. Whether it's a high, low, little, it's not supposed to. It's just not. That's not what it's about. I mean, there's a word. Was it old masters? You know, we're now. Well, Saul's even older, but we're old masters. I think it's like great, you know. So don't fuck with us. You know? Fuck language. But I can only share you in that context that over time.
I made this film called Later, Touch Faster, Later. Watch that. That's my opinion about old masters and young masters and middle-aged masters. I'm the star of it, so it's a self-critique. But it was shot by one of the great and even greater unknown filmmaker than Bruce, Pele Lowe, the great master.
Yes.
Yeah, Pele's good. Anyway, enjoy the night. This is you know, have fun. Okay, as much as fun. So lights, all that stuff.